If you took your medication, there's nothing to worry about. That was the first thing my mother said to me at my sister's wedding, which felt less like a greeting and more like something a pharmacist might whisper before handing you a suspicious paper bag. I stared at her beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Caldwell Estate ballroom, surrounded by white roses, champagne towers, and approximately 200 people who looked like they had never once worried about overdraft fees. "Hi to you too, Mom," I said. She didn't smile. Her eyes dropped immediately to the inside pocket of my jacket. "Ethan." Yes, I took it. Technically, I had swallowed the last capsule 10 minutes earlier in the restroom, while staring at myself beneath lighting so flattering it somehow made me look even more exhausted. The bottle bothered me, though. It always had. Plain amber plastic. White cap. No pharmacy label. No dosage instructions. Nothing except my father's handwriting on a strip of masking tape. "Ethan, mornings." Completely normal. Definitely not the kind of thing that should inspire a documentary called My Parents Were Doing What? I slipped my hands into my pockets and tried to focus on why I was here. Madison was getting married. My older sister, human sunshine, professional overachiever, and the only Caldwell capable of surviving family dinner without developing a stress headache. I hadn't been home in almost 3 years, and apparently absence really did make the heart grow fonder, because I had forgotten how efficiently this place could make me feel 12 years old again. "You look pale," Mom said. "I'm naturally pale. More than usual. Maybe it's the emotional warmth of this conversation." Her mouth tightened. Classic Mom. Somewhere behind us, the string quartet shifted into another elegant song, and guests drifted toward the ballroom doors. Alphas mostly. I could tell because my family had spent my entire childhood reminding me that large gatherings of them might overwhelm someone like me. Someone like me meaning a beta. A weak one, apparently. Sensitive to scent. Easily exhausted. Better off staying away from pack events, ceremonies, formal gatherings, and anything else that might encourage inconvenient questions. I had accepted that explanation for 24 years. Mostly. Tonight, something felt wrong. The room seemed too sharp around the edges. The perfume from the floral arrangements was suddenly overwhelming. I could distinguish roses from eucalyptus from the citrus twist floating in someone's cocktail 15 feet away. That wasn't normal. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. Great. Maybe the mystery pills had finally decided to turn against me at my sister's wedding. Very considerate timing. "Stay close tonight," Mom said quietly. Before I could ask what that meant, Madison appeared at the far end of the room in her wedding dress, glowing so brightly that everyone turned toward her at once. Everyone except one man. Across the ballroom, near the tall windows overlooking the gardens, a stranger in a dark navy suit suddenly went perfectly still. He was tall, broad-shouldered, probably late 20s, with brown hair brushed back from a face that looked annoyingly composed. He had been speaking to another guest. Now he wasn't. His head turned slowly in my direction. Our eyes met. Something strange moved through the air between us, subtle but immediate, like the atmosphere had changed pressure. I stopped breathing for half a second. The stranger's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then recognition, which made absolutely no sense, because I had never seen him before in my life. My mother noticed where I was looking. Her hand closed around my arm. "Ethan," she said, suddenly tense. "Come with me." But the stranger was already moving through the crowd toward us, and the closer he came, the more my senses sharpened. Beneath the flowers and champagne and expensive cologne, I caught something clean and unmistakable, like cedar after rain. My pulse jumped. The man stopped several feet away. His eyes stayed locked on mine. Then, very quietly, he said, "I finally found you." For one extremely reasonable second, I considered pretending he was talking to someone behind me. Then I remembered my mother still had a death grip on my arm. The stranger was staring directly into my face, and apparently denial had limits even for me. "Found me," I repeated. The man blinked as though he had said too much. Up close, he looked even more composed than he had across the ballroom, which I found personally offensive because my heart was behaving like it had just discovered caffeine. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was low and steady. "That came out wrong. There was a right version?" My mother stepped between us. "Ethan, we need to go." The stranger looked at her, and something in his expression changed. Not anger. Recognition of a different kind. "Mrs. Caldwell." Mom went perfectly still. "Interesting. Deeply, spectacularly interesting. "Do we know you?" she asked. "Ryan Whitmore." The name meant nothing to me, but judging by the way my mother tightened her fingers around my sleeve, it meant plenty to her. Ryan looked back at me. The strange cedar scent became clearer, clean rain over wood, cutting through roses, champagne, and perfume with impossible precision. My chest tightened. I could smell everything. Someone had peeled an orange near the bar. A server 20 feet away carried coffee. Madison's bouquet contained gardenias beneath the roses. I stared at the room, suddenly dizzy. Why can I smell all of that? I whispered. Ryan's attention sharpened. "What did you take tonight?" Mom answered before I could. "Medication for a medical condition." I asked Ethan. That should have annoyed me. Instead, something about hearing my name spoken like I was actually part of the conversation made me hesitate. "The same pills I always take." Ryan's gaze dropped briefly toward my jacket pocket. "Do you know what they are?" "They are stabilizers." "What are they stabilizing?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Apparently 24 years was enough time to build an entire life around an answer nobody had ever properly given me. Mom stepped closer. "This is inappropriate." Ryan ignored her. "Ethan, have you ever seen your original designation records?" "My what?" "Your secondary classification." I laughed once, mostly because the alternative was admitting that my hands had started shaking. "I am a beta." Ryan stared at me, not skeptically, almost sadly. "Who told you that?" The question landed harder than it should have. "My family. Doctors. Everyone." "Did you ever see it written on a test result?" The music from the ballroom suddenly felt miles away. I searched my memory for paperwork, lab reports, anything. There had always been appointments. Private clinics. Closed doors. My parents speaking to physicians while I waited outside with a vending machine soda, and absolutely no idea why everyone looked so serious. "I do not understand what you are implying." Ryan took one careful step closer, then stopped several feet away, as though he could tell I needed the space. "I am saying that something is suppressing your scent." Mom inhaled sharply. Ryan heard it. So did I. Apparently I could hear everything now too. Fantastic. Maybe next I would develop night vision. "Betas do not have alpha scent signatures," Ryan continued quietly. "And yours is breaking through whatever you took." My stomach dropped. "That is impossible." "I wish it were." I looked at my mother. "Tell him he is wrong." She did not. That silence was worse than any answer. Around us, guests laughed, glasses chimed, and my sister's wedding continued beneath warm golden lights while my entire understanding of myself began coming apart in the middle of the room. Ryan watched me carefully. "Ethan," he said, gentler now, "I do not think you are a beta." My mother finally found her voice. "Ryan, stop." He looked at her. "Then tell him the truth." I turned toward her slowly. "Mom." Her face had gone pale. And for the first time in my life, I realized the person who looked frightened by my questions was not me. I did what any emotionally stable adult would do after discovering his entire identity might be a family secret. I walked away before anyone could say another word. Not dramatically. I did not knock over a champagne tower or make a scene in the middle of Madison's wedding. I simply turned, crossed the ballroom as fast as dignity allowed, and escaped into the hallway behind the reception area with my mother's voice following somewhere behind me. "Ethan, wait." Absolutely not. Waiting had apparently been my family's favorite strategy for 24 years. I pushed through a set of double doors and found myself in a quieter corridor lined with framed family photographs and small gold lamps. My breathing felt too loud. So did everything else. The music behind the walls. Shoes moving across hardwood. Someone laughing 3 rooms away. Even the soft mechanical hum of the air conditioning seemed painfully clear. "This is fine," I whispered to myself. "This is a completely normal wedding experience." My hands were trembling now. I pressed them against the wall and closed my eyes. That made things worse. Without the room to focus on, every scent arrived at once. Flowers, coffee, fabric detergent, rain from an open side door, and beneath all of it, cedar. Ryan. I heard his footsteps slow before he appeared at the far end of the hallway. He did not rush toward me. He did not reach for me. He stopped about 10 feet away. "Do not come closer," I said. "Okay." The immediate answer surprised me enough that I looked at him. Ryan lifted both hands slightly, palms visible, then let them fall again. "I will stay here." "Good. You should sit down." "I am not sitting down." My knees chose that exact moment to feel unreliable. Betrayal. I leaned harder against the wall. Ryan had the decency not to comment. "What is happening to me?" I asked. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. His expression softened. "Your senses may be adjusting because the suppressant is weakening. Stop calling it that. What would you like me to call it?" "Medication." "All right." He paused. "Your medication may be wearing off." I swallowed. "I have taken it every day since I was 13. Ryan went very still. "Every day." "Morning. Same dose. Sometimes more before family events." His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Did anyone ever explain why?" "Because I get overwhelmed around alphas." Even saying it now sounded strangely rehearsed, like a sentence I had memorized instead of understood. Ryan glanced toward the ballroom doors. "Ethan, look at me." "Why?" "Because there is another alpha coming down this hallway, and I want you to notice what happens." I almost laughed. That sounds like a terrible experiment. A man in a gray suit turned the corner, speaking loudly into his phone. I recognized him vaguely as one of the groom's college friends. He smelled sharp and unfamiliar, unmistakably alpha now that I knew what I was noticing. He approached without looking at us, then glanced up. His eyes met mine. He stopped. Not fully, just a tiny hesitation, barely a second, but something in his posture changed. His gaze dropped. His voice became quieter. Then he moved past us. I stared after him. "What was that?" Ryan did not answer immediately. I turned back. "Ryan." He responded to your presence. My stomach twisted. "I am a beta." The words sounded weaker this time. Ryan's face carried no triumph. That almost made it worse. "I know that is what you were told." "No." I pushed away from the wall. "No, because if you were right, then everyone was wrong. My doctors were wrong. My parents were wrong. My entire life was wrong. Ethan. And that is impossible. Maybe." His voice dropped gently. "Or maybe someone needed you to believe it." The cedar scent around him faded suddenly. I blinked. "What did you do?" "Lowered my scent." "You can do that." "With practice." The pressure in my chest eased almost immediately. Ryan noticed. "Better." I hated how grateful I felt. "A little." His eyes stayed on mine, steady and careful. "Then we start there." Behind us, a door opened. My father's voice traveled down the hallway, controlled and familiar. "Ethan, you need to take the second dose." I turned. He stood at the other end of the corridor, holding the same unlabeled amber bottle I had carried my entire life. For the first time, I did not see medicine in his hand. I saw a question. My father held the bottle like it was the answer to a question I had finally learned how to ask. "Take the second dose," he repeated. His voice was calm, almost gentle, which somehow made everything worse. I stared at the amber plastic in his hand. Same white cap, same blank label, same ordinary little bottle that had sat beside my toothbrush for more than a decade. "What is in it?" I asked. Dad did not answer. Ryan stayed several feet away, exactly where I had asked him to remain. I could still sense him, but the cedar scent had faded too. Something quiet and distant. It was strangely reassuring. "Ethan," Dad said, "this is not the place for this conversation." That is fascinating, because apparently every place was the wrong place for this conversation. My voice shook, but at least it was mine. "What is in the bottle?" His eyes moved toward Ryan. "This is a family matter." "Then talk to your family." I folded my arms, mostly so he would not see my hands trembling. Dad exhaled slowly. "You are overwhelmed. The medication helps regulate your system." "Regulate what?" Silence. There it was again. That same terrible silence my mother had given me in the ballroom. I looked from my father to Ryan. "Can you tell what it is?" Ryan hesitated. "Not from across the hall." Dad immediately tightened his grip around the bottle. "Interesting. Very subtle, Dad. Practically invisible." "There is a library down here," I said. "We can talk there." "Ethan, no." "Then I can walk back into the ballroom and ask Mom in front of 200 guests." His expression changed. I hated that part of me felt victorious. I hated even more that threatening public embarrassment was apparently the fastest route to honesty in my family. Dad turned toward a dark wooden door halfway down the corridor. 5 minutes. The library smelled like old paper, polished oak, and the faint smoke of a fireplace that had not been used in months. I sat in an armchair near the window while Dad remained standing. Ryan stayed near the door. He did not crowd me. He did not speak. He just waited. For once, someone seemed willing to let me decide what happened next. Dad placed the bottle on a side table. "Your mother and I made decisions when you were young," he said. Decisions we believed were necessary. My stomach tightened. That sounds like the opening line to an apology nobody wants to give. You were 13 when your secondary traits began developing. You told me I was a late-presenting beta. Dad looked down. That was the safest explanation. The room seemed to narrow around me. Ryan did not move, but I heard his breath change. Safest for who? I asked. Dad looked at me then, and for the first time that night, he looked tired instead of controlled. For you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I spent half my childhood thinking there was something wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with you. Then why did you medicate me? He looked toward the bottle. Because your designation was stronger than expected. My heartbeat kicked hard against my ribs. Ryan spoke quietly. What designation? Dad's eyes closed for a moment. That was all the answer I needed, but I needed to hear it anyway. Say it, I whispered. Ethan, say it. He finally looked at me. You presented as an alpha. The words landed softly. No thunder. No dramatic crash. Just 6 syllables that rearranged 24 years of my life. I stared at him. An alpha? Yes. And you told me I was a beta. We were trying to protect you. I stood too quickly and had to steady myself against the chair. From what? Dad reached for the bottle. Ryan moved closer to the table, not to me. His gaze dropped to the faded printing molded into the bottom of the plastic. His expression sharpened. Mr. Caldwell, he said. How long has Ethan been taking this compound? Dad froze. I looked at Ryan. What compound? Ryan picked up the bottle carefully and turned it beneath the lamp. This is not a standard stabilizer. The quiet in the room suddenly felt enormous. Then what is it? I asked. Ryan looked at my father before answering. It is a long-term suppressant. My mouth went dry. What does long-term mean? Ryan's voice stayed careful. It means this was never designed just to get you through crowded events. I turned toward my father. He could not meet my eyes. And that was when the truth became frighteningly simple. They had not been waiting for the right time to tell me who I was. They had been hoping I would never find out. For several seconds, nobody spoke, and the silence felt so complete that I could hear the faint tick of a clock somewhere behind the bookshelves. My father finally sat down across from me, which somehow made him look older. Smaller, even. I had never seen him look uncertain before. We did not want this for you, he said. You keep saying things like that, I replied, as if being an alpha was some terrible diagnosis. It was not the designation itself. Then what was it? He rubbed a hand over his face. Your presentation was unusually strong. The doctors told us you would attract attention from powerful families, pack leaders, people who would see you as an asset before they saw you as a person. I stared at him. So your solution was to make sure I never saw myself as a person either? His expression tightened. That is not fair. Neither was lying to me for 11 years. Ryan remained near the table, quiet but present. He did not interrupt. I appreciated that more than I wanted to admit. My father glanced toward him, then back at me. After your first presentation, there were inquiries, invitations, offers to sponsor your education, families asking whether you had been matched. I was 13. Exactly. His voice cracked slightly on the word. That caught me off guard. For the first time, I could hear fear beneath the excuses. Real fear. It did not erase what they had done, but it made the shape of it more complicated. Your mother panicked, he continued. So did I? We found a specialist who said suppression could buy us time. Time for what? For you to grow up. I looked toward the bottle. 11 years is a lot of time. He did not answer. The library door opened softly before I could say more. Mom stepped inside and closed it behind her. She looked from me to Dad, then to Ryan holding the bottle. You told him. Dad exhaled. He deserved to know. I almost laughed. That is a very recent family policy. Mom flinched. Good. Maybe I was being petty. I had earned a little petty. She crossed the room slowly. Ethan, we thought we were protecting you. From being an alpha? From what came with it? You mean attention. She nodded. Pressure. Expectations. People making plans for your future before you even understood what you wanted. I stood there listening, and part of me wanted to believe every word. I wanted this to be one enormous, misguided act of love. A terrible decision made by frightened parents. Something painful but forgivable. Then Ryan spoke. If protection was the goal, why continue the suppressant after he became an adult? The room changed. My mother looked at my father. My father looked at the floor. There it was again. That pause. That microscopic family tradition where the truth apparently needed permission before entering a room. What happened when I turned 18? I asked. No answer. What changed? Mom whispered. The Caldwell succession charter. I frowned. What does that have to do with me? Dad stood. Ethan, this is not something we need to discuss tonight. Actually, tonight is going wonderfully. Let us keep going. Ryan's gaze shifted toward my parents. Caldwell succession follows designation. My mother closed her eyes. My stomach sank before anyone spoke. The family trust was written by your grandfather, she said. He believed leadership should pass to the first alpha heir of the next generation. I stared at her. Madison is older than me. Yes, but she is not an alpha. Mom said nothing. Suddenly, the timing of everything felt wrong in a new way. Madison's wedding. The private family meetings. My father's obsession with me taking an extra dose tonight. The way Mom had watched me the second I walked into the ballroom. What happens after Madison gets married? I asked. Dad stepped forward. Ethan, what happens? My mother answered this time. If there is no recognized alpha heir, succession transfers to the eldest child and her mate. The words settled slowly. Coldly, I looked toward the ballroom beyond the library walls, where my sister was celebrating the happiest night of her life. Then I looked at the bottle that had followed me through mine. So if I am a beta, Madison inherits everything. Nobody answered. They did not need to. And suddenly I understood why my medication had never been temporary. For one awful second, I looked toward the ballroom and wondered whether my sister had known. That thought hurt more than everything else. Madison had been the one person in this family who still called me just to ask whether I had eaten dinner. She sent me terrible birthday cards on purpose because she knew they made me laugh. When I moved away, she helped me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs and complained the entire time about my collection of books. If she had known what our parents were doing, then I was not sure what part of my childhood was still real. Does Madison know? I asked. Mom answered too quickly. No. I looked at Dad. Is that true? He hesitated. She knows the succession rules. That was not my question. She does not know about your designation. The breath I had been holding left me all at once. Relief came first. Then anger followed right behind it. So she thinks she is inheriting because I am a beta. Mom nodded. As far as Madison knows, everything is legitimate. Ryan finally set the bottle back on the table. When does the transfer become official? Dad's expression hardened. You are not part of this family. No, Ryan said calmly. But Ethan is. That silence was almost satisfying. I turned toward my father. When, after the wedding reception, there is a private signing with the trustees. I stared at him. Tonight. It was scheduled months ago. Of course it was. I laughed softly because apparently my nervous system had decided sarcasm was cheaper than therapy. Nothing says congratulations on your marriage like surprise estate administration. Mom stepped toward me. Ethan, please understand. Madison has prepared for this responsibility for years. Because you let her. She is capable. I never said she was not. My voice rose, then I forced it back down. This was still her wedding. Whatever happened next, I was not turning it into a public spectacle. But you decided I was not allowed to know whether I was capable. Dad looked tired again. The family needed stability. You mean predictability? He did not answer. I walked toward the window. Outside, strings of warm lights stretched across the garden, and through the glass I could see guests gathering near the dance floor. Madison stood beside her new husband, smiling at something one of the bridesmaids had said. She looked happy, completely unaware that 3 rooms away, her future had just become tangled with the life I had never been allowed to choose. I am not taking anything from her, I said. Mom blinked. What? I turned back. You keep looking at me like I am about to walk into that ballroom, announce I am an alpha, and demand a crown. Ryan's mouth twitched slightly. There is no crown, right? I asked him. Not that I know of. Good. That would be difficult to explain to the caterers. Even Mom almost smiled. Almost. Then the weight returned. I do not want Madison's wedding ruined, I said. And I do not want her punished for something she did not know. Dad seemed to relax. That annoyed me immediately. Do not look relieved, I said. I am not protecting you. His face went still. I am protecting her. The library door opened again. This time Madison stood there, still in her wedding dress, one hand holding the edge of her skirt away from the floor. Her eyes moved across the room, from our parents to Ryan, then finally to me. Okay, she said slowly. I have spent 15 minutes looking for my entire family, and somehow all of you are hiding in a library with a stranger." She looked at my face, and her expression changed. "Ethan, what happened?" Nobody spoke. Madison frowned. "Why does everyone look guilty?" I glanced at Mom, then Dad. Neither moved. So I looked back at my sister. "Madison," I said carefully, "there is something about me they never told either of us." Madison stared at me for a long moment, then looked at our parents. "What does that mean?" Nobody answered. Of course nobody answered. Apparently silence was the Caldwell family crest. I rubbed my palms against my slacks and tried to find a version of the truth that would not destroy her wedding night. "They told me I was a beta," I said. Madison frowned. "You are a beta." "No." The word came out quieter than I expected. "I am not." Her eyes moved to Mom. "What is he talking about?" Mom stepped forward. "Madison, tonight is not the right time." Madison gave a short laugh. "You are hiding in a library during my reception. Ethan looks like someone just replaced his entire childhood with a legal document. And there is a man I have never met holding his medication. I think we passed the right time about 20 minutes ago." Ryan immediately set the bottle down. "For the record, I was only reading the container." Madison looked at him. "That is somehow not helping." I almost laughed. Almost. Then I told her. 13 years old. Alpha presentation. Suppressants. The succession clause. Every sentence made her face change a little more. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then something deeper that hurt to watch. When I finished, she turned toward Dad. "You knew?" "Madison, you knew all these years?" Dad said nothing. She looked at Mom. "And you let me plan my entire future around this." "We were trying to protect both of you." Madison shook her head slowly. "No, you were trying to control the outcome." The words landed harder because they came from her. I stepped toward her. "Madison, I am not trying to take anything from you." She looked at me so fast I almost regretted saying it. "Do not do that." "Do what?" "Make this easier for me." Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "You lost 11 years of knowing who you were. I can survive one complicated wedding. That nearly broke me." She reached for my hand and squeezed it once. "We figure out the inheritance later. Tonight, you figure out you." Behind us, Ryan quietly moved toward the door. I noticed immediately. "Where are you going?" He paused. "You should have time with your family. You are the reason I know any of this." That does not mean I belong in every conversation that follows. Something about that answer made me trust him more. Madison glanced between us. "Wait, how exactly did you know?" Ryan went still. I had almost forgotten the first thing he said to me. "I finally found you." "That is actually an excellent question," I said. "Why did you say you found me?" Ryan looked at the floor for a second, then back at me. "Because this is not the first time we have met." My stomach tightened. "I would remember you. You were 14. I searched his face. Nothing. "There was a youth pack ceremony in Baltimore. Your family attended for less than an hour." A memory flickered. "A huge hotel. Too many people. Me hiding near a side staircase because every scent in the building made my head hurt." "You were there?" I asked. Ryan nodded. "You were overwhelmed. Your scent had started presenting, and you did not understand what was happening." My chest went cold. The memory sharpened. Someone had found me near the service hallway. An older boy, maybe 18. Calm voice. Dark jacket. He had stood several feet away and talked to me until I could breathe normally again. "That was you," I whispered. Ryan's expression softened. "You asked me if being an alpha was supposed to feel scary." I remembered saying it. I also remembered waking the next morning at home, my parents telling me I had been sick and should never attend another ceremony like that. The next day, your name disappeared from every youth registry connected to the event, Ryan continued. I asked around. Nobody knew where you had gone. "You looked for me?" "For a while." He gave a faint, embarrassed smile. "Then life happened. College. Work. Years passed. But I never forgot your scent because it was unusual." I glanced at Madison. She raised both eyebrows like this had become considerably more interesting. "So you recognized him tonight from something you smelled 10 years ago?" Ryan looked at me. I recognized the scent first. He paused. Then I saw his face. My pulse did something inconvenient again. "And you were sure?" Immediately. The room became strangely quiet. Not frightening this time. Just still. Ryan's voice softened. "I did not find you tonight, Ethan. I just finally learned what happened to the boy I never stopped wondering about." For the first time all night, nobody seemed to have a script for what came next. Madison was still holding my hand. My mother stood near the fireplace looking like she wanted to say something and had finally realized that words were no longer hers to control. Dad stared at the bottle on the table. Ryan stayed near the door, quiet, steady, giving me more space than my own family had managed in 11 years. And somehow that made the decision easier. "I am not taking another pill tonight," I said. Dad looked up immediately. "Ethan, you do not know how your body will respond." "Neither do you, apparently." "That is not what I meant." "I know." My voice softened, but I did not change the answer. "I am done taking something when I do not even understand what it has been doing to me." Mom stepped closer. "Then we should leave. We can call the specialist." "No." She stopped. "No. I am not leaving Madison's wedding like I am some emergency everyone needs to hide." Madison squeezed my hand. "Good." Dad looked at her. "Madison, this is more complicated than you understand." She gave him a flat look. "I got married 3 hours ago and learned 10 minutes ago that my entire inheritance is built around a secret medical decision involving my brother. I am catching up pretty fast." I would have laughed if my throat had not felt so tight. Ryan's expression almost changed. Almost. I looked at him. "If I go back in there, what happens?" "I cannot predict exactly." "That is encouraging. Your suppressant is already wearing off. Your scent may become more noticeable." "To everyone?" "Mostly alphas. Possibly betas with stronger perception." I glanced toward the ballroom doors. Suddenly, 200 wedding guests felt like 2,000. "And they will know? They may realize you were incorrectly classified." Dad spoke quickly. "Which is why you should not do this publicly." I turned toward him. "That is exactly why I have to." His face tightened. "Ethan, I am not making an announcement. I am not interrupting the reception. I am not touching the trust paperwork tonight." I took a breath. "But I am walking back into that room as myself, even if I do not fully know what that means yet." The words scared me as soon as I said them. They also felt better than anything I had said all night. Madison smiled through wet eyes. "There he is." "Who?" "My annoying little brother." "Very moving." "Thank you." She laughed, and just like that, some of the pressure in my chest loosened. Ryan opened the library door. "You do not have to prove anything to anyone." I looked at him. "I know. Then why go back?" I thought about 13-year-old me sitting outside private medical offices. 14-year-old me being told never to attend PAC events again. 18-year-old me celebrating adulthood while my parents quietly decided I still was not allowed to know who I was. Because leaving would feel like I am still doing what they taught me. I said, "Hide. Stay quiet. Do not ask questions." Ryan nodded once. No speech. No heroic declaration. Just understanding. That helped more. We walked back toward the ballroom together, Madison beside me and Ryan a few steps behind. Mom and Dad followed farther back. The music grew louder with every step. So did the scents. Flowers, coffee, champagne, rain drifting through open garden doors. My pulse accelerated, but I kept moving. When we entered the ballroom, nobody noticed at first. Then one alpha near the bar turned his head. Another paused mid-conversation. A woman near the dance floor glanced toward me with sudden curiosity. The changes spread quietly, like ripples across still water. No gasps. No chaos. Just recognition. I felt it too. Something that had always been muted inside me was finally present. Not loud. Not dangerous. Just mine. Dad whispered my name behind me, but I kept walking until I reached the edge of the dance floor. Madison moved toward her husband, then turned back and gave me a small nod. I looked around the room, at people who suddenly saw something in me I had never been allowed to see in myself. Then I looked at Ryan. He was watching me, but not with surprise anymore. With patience. "I am not taking her wedding from her," I said quietly, knowing my parents could hear me. "And I am not taking the inheritance tonight." Dad exhaled. "Ethan, thank you." I turned toward him. "Do not thank me." His relief disappeared. "I am choosing Madison. That is different from choosing your lie." Mom lowered her eyes. I took one more breath, steadier now. "You do not get to decide who I am anymore." For once, nobody tried to answer for me. 3 weeks later, I learned 2 important things about being an alpha. First, apparently my sense of smell was going to remain inconveniently excellent. Second, every person who had ever told me coffee smelled the same from 10 feet away had been lying. I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment holding a mug while morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, and I could identify the cinnamon from the bakery downstairs, the laundry detergent from the hallway, and Ryan before he even knocked. Cedar after rain. Familiar now. Safe. I opened the door before his hand reached it. He blinked. That is getting unsettling. You smell like a forest with excellent credit. Good morning to you too. He held up a cardboard drink carrier. I brought coffee. You are forgiven. Ryan stepped inside, and I closed the door behind him. My apartment was still mostly boxes, because discovering your family had suppressed your secondary identity for 11 years apparently did not come with complimentary unpacking services. A specialist in Baltimore had confirmed what Ryan suspected. I was an alpha, not unstable, not dangerous, not broken, just heavily suppressed for a very long time, which meant recovery had to happen slowly and under actual medical supervision instead of whatever strange family tradition involved unlabeled bottles and emotional avoidance. Madison had postponed the trust signing. That had caused approximately 77 phone calls from attorneys, trustees, and relatives who suddenly remembered my number. I ignored most of them. Madison did too. She told me we would deal with the inheritance together when I was ready, then threatened to personally block anyone who tried to make my identity into a family business strategy. Marriage looked good on her. So did rebellion. Mom had called twice. Dad had written an email, so long it probably qualified as a memoir. I had not forgiven them. Maybe someday I would understand them better. Those were not the same thing. For now, distance felt healthy. Ryan set my coffee on the counter and glanced toward the small trash can beside the refrigerator. The old amber bottle sat inside, empty, exactly where I had thrown it after my specialist told me never to take it again. Symbolic? He asked. I was going to throw it in the building dumpster, but apparently I enjoy dramatic household objects. Very alpha of you. I narrowed my eyes. I am still learning which comments are offensive. That one was definitely complimentary. He smiled, and my chest did that annoying little thing it had started doing whenever he looked at me for too long. Not instinct. Not destiny. Just Ryan. Somehow that mattered more. We carried our coffee to the fire escape because my apartment did not have a balcony, and New York landlords apparently considered fresh air a luxury feature. The August morning was warm, the city already humming below us. Ryan leaned against the railing. How was the appointment yesterday? Good. They reduced one of the temporary medications again. Any headaches? No. I did accidentally identify my neighbor's dinner through 2 walls. Useful skill. He was making salmon. It was not useful. Ryan laughed quietly. For a while, we simply stood there. No family secrets. No wedding guests watching. No inheritance documents waiting in another room. Just 2 people drinking coffee 6 stories above a street full of taxis and delivery trucks. You know, I said. You told me you found me at the wedding. Ryan looked over. I remember. I have been thinking about that. Dangerous habit. Very funny. I rested my arms on the railing. You did not really find me there. His expression softened. No. You recognized me. Immediately. I looked down at my coffee. That still feels strange. Good strange. Mostly. I glanced at him. A little terrifying. That sounds familiar. I smiled because I knew exactly what he meant. 14 years old in a hotel hallway, asking an older boy whether being an alpha was supposed to feel scary. I had spent a decade believing that frightened kid had disappeared. He had not. He had simply been waiting. Ryan spoke gently. I recognized you at the wedding, Ethan. But you found yourself afterward. The words settled somewhere deep. This time, they did not rearrange my life. They simply fit inside it. I looked at him. That was suspiciously thoughtful. I practiced on the drive over. I knew it. He laughed, and for once I did not feel like running from the warmth rising in my chest. Ryan hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. Can I kiss you? No instinct. No expectation. Just a question. I smiled and stepped closer. Yes. The kiss was brief, gentle, and uncomplicated. When we separated, Ryan looked almost surprised. What? I asked. Nothing. Ryan. He smiled. I spent 10 years wondering what happened to you. I looked through the open apartment window, where the empty suppressant bottle was still visible in the trash and sunlight covered the floorware. Unopened boxes waited for me to decide what belonged where. Then I guess you can stop wondering. I reached for my coffee again. I am right here.